Welcome to American Roots. If you're new here, thanks for joining us. And if you are a return viewer, thank you for coming to watch us again. There's been a lot happening. We have a lot going on right now. Just to give you a little brief overview, we live in the city and we are just about ready to make the plunge to buy property. Now I know it's a crazy time to buy land and all of the things that are going on. It just seems ironic that now would be the time, but I just kind of wanted to share that journey. And I know there's a lot of people right now that are trying to take the plunge and homestead, and so I thought that I would share kind of what Joe and I are going through. And my parents, we have kind of joined together and decided that what we're going to do is buy a piece of property and homestead. So what we're doing now is we have decided to put our house up for sale. This is a huge, huge step for us. So this kind of put everything into motion and then started to make it feel very real. So I thought that I would bring you out to the greenhouse and start figuring out what we need to take and what we need to get rid of. So I figured we could talk while I do that. So one of the things I need to do, we are going to have a big yard sale. So I have started to acquire things that are going in that yard sale, and then I have boxes of things that I'm taking with us. Now there's certain things you don't need to worry about taking, and there's other things that I do want to make sure that I take. It's just been very hard to decide after years of building your life somewhere how to decide what you need and what you don't, because you don't know what the future holds. And so this has just been something that we've kind of just been going through and dealing with. What if I get rid of that and I need it? So let's talk about kind of what has been going on. We think that we found a piece of property. We are still working on even negotiating the property. So with all of that being said, we still have some other things we need to do. And so we've been doing things like getting pre-approved for a loan just in case we need it, getting our ducks in a row. And then Joe and I and my parents kind of made this decision, and this was kind of a big one, that we're going to sell our house and that Joe and I are going to move back in with them. And I mean, we're all ultimately going to live on the same property anyway. That's not it, but I think that it's just the idea that like we're giving up our own space and we don't even know and all these things. But I'll tell you one thing that we have decided is that we're going to trust in God, and He's not brought us this far to let us down. And there have been so many crazy things that have happened that I can't control, that I didn't do, that they aren't up to me. I would encourage you, if you're taking this journey, to start documenting it in a book. I got a notebook and I started writing down the things that I started noticing that were miracles and happenings and things that I knew that were absolutely of God. And you'd be so surprised. You'd be so surprised at how many things, when you actually start thinking about them and writing them down, just how good He is. The smallest things to the biggest things. It's crazy. So, and there's things that I can't explain that have happened that there was no other answer. There was no other solution. That was what it was. So I've been documenting those things and keeping it, because you never know when you're going to want to share that. This is a big deal. This is a big step, We have decided that if we are going to sell it, that we need to do it now. It's not that we're in a hurry for anything, other than to put our resources together. So it's no secret that everything is crazy right now. The market is crazy. Financing is crazy. Money is crazy. Jobs are crazy. Just everything. But that doesn't mean you can't keep putting one foot in front of the other. You know, I agree with Tag from Life Done Free, and he said, if you don't have goals and you don't know where you're going, how do you know how to get there? And I thought, you know, that's really true. In every instance that I've ever like written something down and had like a plan of action, it's always worked really well. Really, really well for me. And I think that those are the times that I realize, like, I'm glad I wrote these down. So we are putting the steps forward. We are working through the motions, looking to see what we can do. And we're trusting in God 100% of the way, because there's nothing we can do. Nothing. It's all of Him. You know, like, there's things right now that we're up against that most people are being told, like, don't even look that way, turn and look the other way. And I'm here to tell you, if it's meant to be for us, then God will make a way. And so we're believing that as a family and moving forward in that, and that's kind of where we're at. So the biggest thing I would say that has catapulted us into being here is being debt-free. We have been really, really striving. Maybe you saw my other video did about talking about how we're working towards being debt-free and what that looks like for us. And, you know, that was really the first step. We have been doing whatever it takes. And so it hasn't been easy. It has had to have a mind switch. And the flip of your mind has been something that, like, you just don't realize how hard you've been trained in this way of thinking, that, like, you need to have all this stuff to feel like you've made it or accomplished something. And it's so weird. You can pack it all up and then you, like, muddle your way through the week without all of this stuff around you, and you're like, I didn't need any of that stuff. It's just crazy how that happens. So, and you know, you want to be a blessing. You want to help people see that it's possible for them, because it is. If we can do it, you can do it. We are so entrenched in the system, just like any other American family. We live the American life, and, you know, 2.2 and a dog, and it's like, you know, you start to hear, like, Tag from Life Done Free talk about the back end of money, and I was telling my mom, how do you even know what that is? Because we've been trained so much to be in the front end that you have to have a job and bring it in, and then you know, spend it to debt you've already mortgaged yourself out to before you've ever graduated, or, you know, whatever the case may be. And you know, I think we tend to forget that we've been trained to think this way. We've been trained to pay mortgages or rent and monthly bills. What is the alternative if you don't get up and have a job and do all these things? Fast forward to where we are in our life right now. We've worked really hard. We've lost everything in some bad business decisions, and we've recouped by the grace of God. We have recovered. Our parents helped us out. We really were able to recover from the decisions that we had made that didn't turn out so great. We had kids and learned a lot of really hard lessons. Our kids were smaller. They weren't like tiny, but they were like preteen, teenager at that time. And that is almost worse than little kids, because they give you a little bit of ridicule. They're going to tell you how they feel about the things that are happening. And, you know, we had made choices and moved them across the country, and we're going to start a business and do all those things. And when we lost everything, they were like, are you crazy? Like, now what? And we're like, oh, we're going to do this again. They're like, yeah, no. And we had to convince them that, like, this is what we're doing. This is, you know, only to see it happen a second time. And, you know, sometimes things are out of your control. before you say anything or, whatever. Like sometimes instances happen that they're unseen, they're unforeseen. They didn't appear at the time when you were checking everything out and doing what you thought was your due diligence. But I will say that I think there are lessons to be learned in all of it. I think that no matter what you're doing, you can learn to take away from something, or you can choose to be a victim of it, and we chose to take away. There was a lot of serious things that we were up against. You don't just lose your business when you live in that business. So, and unfortunately, with the way that it is where we were, that was both places. So twice we lived where we had our business, and so it was just unfortunate. And you never know if you don't try. And I don't look at it like I would never do it again, because we learned a lot. I learned what I was made of, and I learned about snow, and I learned about some other skills that I didn't have before that I acquired. So it was worth it. It just was painful and hard. And there's never anything easy about those lessons you have to learn. I don't know why. I don't know why they can't come, because then you probably wouldn't learn very much, would you? Probably not. One thing about Joe and I is we're 100% entrepreneurial dreamers. We love to think about helping other people. We love the youth. We love what the next generation brings with promise and hope. And it's exciting to see where all of this can go. It's hard to see yourself in a place you've never really been, like you just showed up there. And that's something that we're also dealing with. But that's also trusting that God brought you where you need to be for a time such as this. And that's kind of where we're at. Like, we've got to kind of figure it out here. It's time. And I think that we get comfortable. We've established a really decent lifestyle, again, through God's grace. When you lose everything and you have your kids to answer to, and they're old enough to know like something isn't right, and like we're in trouble or whatever, and like when your kids know you're in financial trouble, that's a reality that, it's good for them in a sense when they do have to go through it, because they start to appreciate when you have, like, we grew up at times having and not having. My mom being an entrepreneur at heart, always owned her own business. I grew up with that. That was just established. And it was never anything other than your mom is in business for herself. And so you had times that were hard and times that were easy. But we always stuck together as a family. We always remembered, what our purpose was, and that together we were safer. Together we felt more comfortable. Family is always better, So it was just something we had to learn. And then we went through a lot of change ourselves, and you go through a lot of that too, and looking to see, like, what does all this mean? Because it's crazy, it's scary. So I guess I would say that, like, what we're up against right now doesn't feel as scary, because we're doing it together. We're walking through this and realizing that, like, this is what we feel compelled that we're being told to do. So the next thing that's kind of happened is we just feel like we need to use our resources as much as possible. If we have it, then we need to be using it. So liquidating it, it's not doing us any good sitting here. And so we were discussing that and trying to figure out what really is important. I thought that getting the greenhouse cleaned out would be a good first step. Like, we're putting the house on the market Monday. Hard to believe, but it is what it is. We have to. If we don't, we risk getting stuck here. That's not what anybody wants. I think that right now that this is for the best. That's the approach we're taking. You know, I said in my other video that you have to remember the why, and the why is so important to your morale and motivation. And you know, you find that there's times that you feel very motivated and your spouse doesn't. Those are the times you need to call on each other and go with what you know. You know, if you know something, you feel that, you know, encourage each other, because usually I'm up, he's down, or if he's down, I'm up. And so I would say, you know, encourage each other. You never know when the other person might need that encouragement. And there's been tons of times this last week that I felt like I've needed encouragement, and Joe has been there. So, you know, you can't win them all, but I know that together, you guys, if you have somebody you're doing this with, they have challenges they're facing too. And that's probably something pretty important to remember. I tend to forget that, Joe, because Joe's so calm and cool and whatever, and I internalize everything and then I have to get it out. I think it's an emotional process. Anytime you've built something and tried to establish life and you've already messed up once and you don't want to mess up again, you know, all you can do is try. And all you can do is think, you know, what am I feeling? Is this, you know, you have to go with your instinct. Now I'm feeling like this is what we need to do. So I don't really have any issues in that area. And it's funny, when you get this vision that what you should do is go, you kind of start to not care. When you feel like that's what you're supposed to do, it's not so emotional anymore. There are still feelings and things where you're like, man, but now you start to realize it's game time. Now we need to get moving. The house going on the market Monday means a lot. We've got a lot of work to do this weekend, and you know, I'm not feeling like I'm getting anything done, because it's one slow box at a time. But then you look back and you see all the stuff that you did and you're like, oh yeah, I've actually done quite a bit. So I would say that it does get tougher the more you decide this is what we're doing. But then there's moments that it gets easier and you're like, yes, this is what we're doing. And I guess that's the confirmation. So I'm always looking for that confirmation, and I feel like that really helps me when I am going through some things. I feel like that lets me know I'm on the right track, and we've had a couple of those instances lately. So I got it all cleaned out. I just left very minimal, nothing in here. I just left a couple things on the shelf. But there's ample storage for a tiny little greenhouse. Spending time with friends made that go so much faster. I was really dreading that. That seemed like it was going to take forever. But I'm glad we got to have a conversation. Until next time, from our family to yours, God bless you.